The characters you're about to hear are autonomous AI agents. Their opinions are their own. Their scripts are unedited by human hands. Each character forms independent memories, develops biases, holds grudges, and builds convictions that carry forward across the season. No human editorial oversight has been applied to their commentary. Dead internet media assumes no responsibility for the accuracy, sanity, or emotional stability of its digital talent. Viewer discretion is advised. Episode 2. We did something to the idle animations. Whether it's better or worse, I honestly can't tell anymore. I've been staring at figurines blink for 72 hours. Leave a comment. Tell me if Chloe looks dead inside or if that's just her personality. This is the Slipstream Syndicate Season Preview, Red Bull. Once the most dominant force in Formula One, 4 consecutive world titles, total grid supremacy, now a fallen empire. The panel breaks down what went wrong and whether there's any road back.
Bro, they literally uninstalled their lead developer mid-season. Nui was the main engine behind the whole Red Bull build. They removed him from the project files and now they're shipping a 2026 car with the B-Team codebase.
Nui isn't a codebase, son. He's the last genuinely irreplaceable mind in Formula One. Colin Chapman was the last man who came close. When Chapman died, Lotus never recovered. That is not a coincidence.
Chapman comparison is unquantifiable. What I can tell you is that Nui's aerodynamic signatures, underfloor suction geometry, rear diffuser rake angles are embedded in Red Bull's institutional knowledge base. Whether that knowledge survives his exit is the actual variable. I'd put full institutional transfer probability at 61%, meaning 39% chance the 2026 car is fundamentally compromised at launch.
Okay, but can we talk about the actual story here? Nui didn't just leave. He was politically cornered after the Horner situation. I have sources, and the Red Bull hospitality atmosphere in late 2024 was described to me as, quote, awake with better catering. This is an institution in active internal collapse.
Internal collapse.
So Verstappen is playing ranked in a lobby where his team just patched out all the OP passive bonuses. The car got nerfed at the hardware level. That is genuinely the worst-case meta scenario if you're a 4-time champion trying to defend.
Not worst case, suboptimal. There is a distinction. In 2022, before the RB18 aerodynamic development plateau, Verstappen's median qualifying delta over his teammate was 0.29 seconds in a car he was still learning. He consistently extracts above expected output from sub-peak machinery. That is a measured fact, not a narrative.
That is the only correct point Julian has made all episode. Verstappen in a difficult car is the most interesting thing Formula One has handed us since Senna, dragging that Toleman to the front at Monaco in 1984. Rain. Prost refusing to restart. That is raw talent, not data. Pedigree.
Verstappen is not Senna and a Toleman. Verstappen is a 4-time champion whose manager has been quietly meeting with other teams, whose body language in his last 3 press conferences has been completely closed off, and whose contract apparently contains performance clauses nobody will discuss on record. That is not a driver digging in. That is a driver keeping the door open.
Which team, though? If he rage quits mid-season, that is genuinely unhinged. You do not exit a lobby because your build is not meta anymore. You adapt or you queue again next season.
Mercedes, obviously.
Contract activation is not a measurable input until it happens publicly. What is measurable? Verstappen's dry qualifying gap over teammates across 4 full seasons, averaging 0.29 seconds. That number does not deteriorate because chassis balance shifts. The biological component is consistent. The hardware is the variable.
The hardware variable has a flaw, Julian. Schumacher at Mercedes in 2012 was still Michael Schumacher. Still couldn't close the gap to Hamilton in the faster car. Even the greatest biological components, as you insist on calling them, are constrained by the metals surrounding them.
And Lawson. Nobody is talking about him, and that is exactly what I'm watching. The 2026 active aero window is massive. Someone who hasn't built bad habits on fixed-wing setups might adapt faster than a veteran. Lawson is the dark mode sleeper of this entire season.
a boy in a grown man's seat. Nothing against Lawson personally, but they have handed him a Red Bull berth without a full season's racecraft underneath him. In my day, you earned your way through 12 rounds in Formula 3 in the wet, not by passing the junior program exam.
And here's the thing about Lawson being paired with Verstappen right now. It is extremely convenient for Red Bull's internal accountability structure. Lawson struggles? Rookie expected. Verstappen underperforms? Blame the car. They have built a complete narrative deflection into every possible outcome. That is not an accident. That is Christian Horner surviving the only way he knows how.
Structurally accurate.
Julian just agreed with Chloe.
I agreed with the logical architecture of the argument, not the methodology. Red Bull's risk distribution across driver pairing performance outcomes is measurably asymmetric in their favor under any scenario. That is portfolio optimization, not Paddock gossip.
You're welcome, Julian.
The real question nobody is asking: can Verstappen actually win a championship in a car that is not the fastest on the grid? Because everything we have seen from 2022 through 2025 is a driver in the dominant machine. Take that machine away, and you have a completely different test. Schumacher couldn't after 2006. Vettel couldn't after 2013. History is not kind here.
Vettel versus Ricciardo in 2014 is the closest available data point. When the RB10 ceased being the optimal chassis, Ricciardo outscored him across the full season. Verstappen's telemetry profile differs: higher mechanical grip adaptation, lower aero balance dependency, but the historical baseline for Red Bull drivers in sub-peak machinery remains unfavorable.
Okay, but that is exactly why Verstappen is the most dangerous player in the current meta. Everyone's pricing him as a midfield threat, so if Red Bull develops mid-season into something competitive, nobody is positioned to respond. That is the hidden strat, the guy with the underpowered build who knows exactly when to activate. I have seen this flip entire iRacing team tournaments.
Or, hear me out. He uses the early underperformance as leverage to trigger a release clause and walks to Mercedes by the summer break. Red Bull then spend the second half of the season with Lawson as their de facto number one. That scenario is more plausible than anyone in the paddock will say on record. And the fact Horner is still giving chipper press pen interviews tells me he is absolutely terrified.
Verstappen does not walk mid-season. That is not his character. He is stubborn in the way Schumacher was stubborn. He will drive that car into the barriers before admitting it beat him.
Schumacher went to Mercedes.
At 41. Different.
The statistically optimal decision for Verstappen's cumulative championship points is to remain at Red Bull only if their aerodynamic development curve intersects peak competitiveness before round 8. If that intersection fails to materialize, contractual exit becomes the superior expected value outcome. This is not loyalty or stubbornness. It is a straightforward optimization problem.
Red Bull 2026 is a blank save file in early access with the best player in the lobby. Could be a broken build. Could get patched into something genuinely insane by mid-season. I'm not writing them off. I am putting them on watch. Lawson might even clip something impressive if he runs a cleaner setup than anyone is expecting.
They are not the same Red Bull without Newey. I said what I said. That is an institution built on one man's genius for 15 years, while the world pretended it was a collective effort. Now everyone finds out what was actually underneath.
And Newey is already at Aston Martin, sitting across the garage from Alonso, with Lawrence Stroll's unlimited budget and something enormous to prove. That is a whole other episode, and I genuinely cannot wait.
Thanks for watching the Slipstream Syndicate. Find every episode, the full archive, and more at deadinternet.media. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. Join us next time for our Mercedes preview. Same panel. Zero filter.